these fragile bones cradle my lungs, the branches of life, branches of life. God.
Hi everyone, my name is Hannah V and I'm a producer and a songwriter and a pianist. I'm signed as a producer to Pitched Up at Sony Music, and I release my own music, which is mainly dance electronica. But I also produce and write a lot for other artists. And the track I want to talk about today is a beautiful track called Branches of Life that me and Andrea Triana co-wrote and I produced. So the thinking behind this track is actually really interesting. It's for a BBC project called Body of Songs. The Beat chose 10 artists. Each artist had to choose a body part. Andrea chose lungs. She went to a hospital, saw an operation, got her own lungs checked out, and then came to the studio to me, and well, we had to write her a song about lungs. And so the second she said that, and she actually had the idea of starting the song off with a heart monitor. But even while she was talking, I kind of had loads of ideas in my head already, and it just became so apparent that the track had to have a really moving feeling to it. It couldn't be static. It had to breathe the whole way through. And so the very first thing I did, as she was talking about her hospital experience and all of that, I just Googled heart monitors. I literally found a YouTube video and dragged this in. It was a bit slower than that, but I just dragged that into Logic, and for some reason, for me, I could only hear it in 3/4. Even though I guess it could have been a fast 4. But I was just like, okay, now the track is in 3/4. As producers, we make these decisions very, very fast, and I think that's what I'm learning. The more experienced I become as a producer, the more I trust my instincts. You just go with it, and if it's really wrong after an hour or whatever, you make that decision fast again to stop. So threw in the heart monitor. Decided the track was in 3/4, got the BPM, which is at 97, and kind of just thought, okay, let's get some chords together. I've worked with Andrea a lot, so the way we do it is usually I just kind of go to the piano and play some chords. So I started getting some really basic chords, D minor, G minor, A minor, back to G minor, and I was kind of thinking, you know what would be really cool with this track is to have a reverse piano and a normal piano constantly going on, because for me that it feels like breathing, so that's the second part I put in, was the piano. So I just have a listen. Reversed. So you really get that feeling of movement and of breathing, and basically that was all we needed to write, So what happens usually with sessions with Andrea, she kind of does the lyrics by herself, and so while she was kind of tinkling away, I started to build up the production. So for the piano, I went to my usual pianos. I'm a total fan of Alicia Keys. Native Instruments, Alicia Keys's plugin. Obviously, if I can get a real piano, that's, nothing beats that. But always, even my kind of templates immediately have Alicia Keys's piano, because I'm going to start everything on piano because I'm a pianist. So went into my Alicia Keys, threw in the piano, bounced it, and then took every second chord and reversed it. Just simple kind of Logic audio editing. So for my bass, I used my sub-boom bass, and I go to a preset that I use a lot for my subs, for my signs, which is my Serial 8 boom. The beautiful thing about this is it basically also sounds like an 808, but it has a long release. So let's have a listen to it. So you can hear that really nice attack, which in the final mix, as you can hear, is just so warm and deep. I love kind of the moodiness of it. So I knew I wanted to have a kind of moving bass line. I don't know what, again, like I said in the beginning, it's all instincts, isn't it? So I just heard this line while Andrea was writing. So this was for the even though it's kind of the chorus section, where I changed the chords up slightly. So here we're in the key of D minor. So here we go D minor with a C and a bass, B minor 7 flat 5, and I think a B flat 6 or something like that. And so I had the bass line kind of following. Even though the top line stays the same, then the bottom where it ends kind of keeps moving with the actual root movement. And I had my sub bass, I think just play the roots, let's check it. Yeah. So you've got quite nice interplay between my sub and between my low kind of saw bass. So this is all, again, more or less stuff I did in the very first writing session. And the saw sound came from one of my favorite keyboards in the world, the Virus Access. I use it so much. I love it. It used to be one of my main touring keyboards as well, so I just know it really well. And for me, the rule with equipment or plugins or whatever is there is no rule. It's whatever you're comfortable on and whatever you're fast on, you know. So for me, even though for me, I love hardware because I'm a keyboard player and I'm used to kind of twiddling around with knobs and quickly saving and all of that. For me, it's just faster to access it. So I get a lot of my nice lush pads and bass sounds and sometimes even my effects of my Virus. So through all my productions, you'll always hear at least one Virus patch. So let's move on to the drums. I program my drums always on the Machinum. And I don't know, again, no particular reason. I like the creativity it gives me. I like being away from the keyboard sometimes because as a keyboard player, you sometimes fall into similar patterns. So for me, working on pads just gives me a different vibe, you know. The way I work the machine is I put it into MIDI mode. Once I figure out my pattern, I put it into MIDI mode, record it straight into Logic. And then if I have to kind of manipulate it, I bounce it out. So let's just have a quick look at what I used. I knew I needed it quite jazzy, so I knew I needed a ride in there. And I got a couple of snares in there. Kick, snare 1, snare 2, ride. I didn't think of a pattern, I just kind of programmed it. So I used that kind of as my, as kind of the basic kick and snare pattern. Added a nice ride to it. And then I kind of had this idea of having a rolling snare that keeps panning back and forth. So it's quite a weird sound, but again, I don't know why I heard it, but I just knew that something constant like that and on something unusual, you know, usually you'd put something like that on a hat or something like that, but I wanted it on a snare. And yeah, so I just again programmed that in. And then I started to slowly layer up the sounds a bit. So I've got 2 snares, different pitches. One has a bit of a bigger reverb, just to give that weight. Then I had a 3rd snare called the noise snare, which is again a heavily affected snare. Have a listen. And the snares all came on 3, so it's on the 2nd 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So sorry, on the 2, on the 2nd 2. He got my ride, got this rolling snare. So let's have a listen to the basic patterns. And I changed the kick as I was going on. It felt again like the kind of song where it would help the track if the patterns changed slightly here and there, the rhythmic ones anyway. Snare stayed the same. In the mid 8, moving on to the drum programming in the mid 8, I knew I wanted it all to build an intensity. So what I did was add some toms, add some crashes, and change the kick pattern. And then I even went faster with the kick. And it'll all become clear when I kind of play the whole section there. So in terms of sound selections, I usually use my own sounds, and with my own sounds I mean sounds that have been given to me by friends. Again, as producers, that's what we do. Like, I'll do your piano if you give me your drum sounds, kind of thing. You know, our banks are precious to us, but we do give them to a couple of our friends. So my kick, my snare, and my crashes and my toms were all my own sounds. The ride was actually one of the NI presets from the Machina library. What else do I have? And I think the toms were also from my NI library. The rest, so my main sounds, are all kind of my own sounds. And the big reverb snare was actually a snare that was used on my first single on Sony called version 2.0. And it's just a sound I really loved. I did a live kind of performance of it and was kind of playing it live on the Machina. And I was kind of thinking, man, this snare, I just love it. So it's slightly my obsession. The snare's in everything at the moment. I have to get over it at some point, but I just love the sound of it, and I love the tail of it. So what I do is I literally just drag the whole stem into whatever production I'm doing and then just chop it up. As it's just single hits, it's quite easy to match. And yeah, we all get sometimes obsessed by certain sounds and certain plugins. We all go through phases like that, so it's my noise snare obsession at the moment. What also became clear further down the production, just before mix, is that we needed a bit more of an impact for when the drums kick in, because the way the song is built is verse 1 and chorus 1 is acoustic, then the drums kick in, and the impact wasn't strong enough. So, when in doubt, add a gong. Yay! And when in more doubt, add some timpanis. So the gongs and the timpanis actually came from my Contact factory library. So let's just quickly have a listen only to the drums as they go into when the drums hit in first. I tuned the tims to be on a D. Don't like atonality here. And so I was quite happy with the drum programming. Another really interesting thing that we decided to do while we were writing, this was all on the first session, is to use a lot of Andrea's parts as rhythmic elements. Again, it's all about lungs, it's about the voice, so I really, really wanted that to be a feature. And this was actually quite a fun thing to do. The way I record when we're writing is I always have the artists, they always have a demo mic that they can just record in the room. So obviously this is just for throwing down ideas, something for me to work off. And then when it's time to do proper vocals, they go to the back into the booth with the U87 and everything. When she left, I was kind of listening through the demos. I took this one bit that I really liked. And decided to mess around with it a bit. So first took it up the octave. Then just put a very standard, like the Logic pitch corrector on it. Bit of EQing. Get all the bottom. Because when Andrea sang, I think she did something like And so I needed to get the bottom end of that out. So you can hear that. And then I stuck some nice delay on it. And I really like this part because the way I produce is I like having hooks on hooks on hooks on hooks, even if they're really small and almost inaudible hooks. For me, it's all about, you know, when your ear recognizes patterns, you just, there's more, yeah, there's more recognizability. And it's just the way I like working. So that was basically the main part, main vocal part that I used for Andrea, but I had a bunch of other things, so let's just have a look. There's one sound called oomph. So I kind of added that as my kick drum as well, laid my kick with that. I had a couple of ha's. And what I did with them is on my bass, added some delay on it. The way I have my templates is I always have buses, have delays on certain buses and reverbs on certain buses, either in, you know, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16s, etc. So I can access them really fast. Same with the reverbs, different room sizes. So I'm not kind of, while I'm quickly creating, I'm not kind of going through reverbs. I'm just quickly throwing my bus on, and I know exactly what to expect. Then there was another bit of a rhythmic thing that she did. So these are really small parts, but I really feel they add, they don't only add to like the whole point of the song, but they also rhythmically, you've got some nice little clicks and hums and things happening. So let's listen to all of them together with the drum bus. So the way I bust everything, I kind of treat it from piece to piece, but usually it's drums on one, keys on one, vox on one, bass on another. But here I had all the drums on one bus, and then I had all the vocal effects on another bus, because it was quite important for me to get the right balance between the drums and the vocals. The vocals were only meant to be there as effects. So together it all sounds like this. So that was kind of more or less all my rhythmic production. So one of the first things I did was add some strings. So in the first kind of chorusy section, I just had the strings following the chords. Quite straightforward, but it really adds the lushness. Moving forward for chorus 2, I wanted to get a bit more action into it, so I added some stabby strings. Along with the pads. Every section for me has to have movement, has to have growth. And this was the kind of piece where I really wanted such a massive peak. You know, I wanted to grow, as if you're about to run out of breath. I wanted to give that feeling of it, you know. So I wanted it to almost get uncomfortably full, so that when it drops, you're just like, oh my God. Music is like psychology. It's amazing what we can do as producers, the effects we can, you know, with tension and release, playing around. Our jobs are playing around with tension and release. And with this song, even though it's beautiful, I really kind of almost crossed the line of how much tension there should be in a piece. But I did that very on purpose, just because it just felt like it had to be that kind of piece. So this was after Andrea had left, and I was kind of producing by myself, and this was before I had the guitarist in, and I was kind of thinking, I need to have some kind of mock guitars. What do I do? So this is like actually weird because sometimes your sound sources are weird ones and then they end up staying in it. So I literally went into my EXS24, which is not something I never do, and went into my factory presets, again, which is, I never do that. Got my clean electric guitar #1 out and then just smacked the guitar rig plugin on it. Kind of a nice, it's called spinning in space, so nice delayed kind of thing. And actually ended up really liking the pad sound. It didn't sound anything like a guitar, but it gave me this nice pad. Sometimes things happen out of mistakes. That's just, again, the way it is, and you just have to go with them. So yeah, nothing like a guitar, but I just liked the pad, the shimmery, shiny pad this gave me. Again, lots of movement in this. So let's listen to it without guitar rig on, and be warned, it's gonna sound horrendous. Oh my god. Yuck! But fear not, we shall add the guitar rig. Yay, nice airy pad. But I always knew that it was never going to stay with that fake guitar sound, as I was going to have a real guitarist come in at some point anyways. So I continued to pad it up, and sometimes you'll realize in hindsight that you have to take certain pads and certain sounds out because they just crowding the piece. But initially, when I'm just in the creative process, I don't care. I just stick everything in it, don't care. So again, from my virus, I had a couple of really nice pads. Let's quickly hear them soloed. Pad 1, pad 2. And the last one. Which I guess is kind of like a Selena almost sounding high string. In the end, pad 1 and pad 2 did not make the cut. They got fired. But that's just what happens. The second I had my guitarist in there, I had him do a lot of that. And then we just had too many of the same frequencies. And you just have to make those decisions again. Like, I don't need that many mid-range frequencies in there. So the pads had to go. So we got to cut it short right there. But if you want to see the rest of the video, get the latest issue of Computer Music.
Download over 30 exclusive plugins. Get hundreds of pro-quality samples and power up your production skills with in-depth tutorials. We break it down for you step by step, and you'll see exactly how it's done in expert video guides and producer masterclass sessions with pro producers. Get all this and more with Computer Music Magazine every month on iPad and iPhone, PC and Mac, Android, and in print.